Okay, you want me to go ahead and start?
Sure.
All righty.
Good evening, everyone. I am Janice Baker, president of the St. Louis Metropolitan Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. It's an honor to be here this evening with the League of Women Voters, the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, and my sister chapter, St. Louis Alumni. As Katrina Kerr previously said, there's a lot of trickery. Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. It's an honor to be here this evening with the League of Women Voters, the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, and my sister chapter, St. Louis Alumni. As Katrina Kerr previously said, there's a lot of trickery going on, and we're here to set the record straight about voting. We want you to get out and vote. Take someone with you. This election has a lot of consequences. Let your voice be heard, and there is power in your vote. I will see you at the polls.
You can go ahead, Bernadette.
Bernadette.
Okay, thanks. Good evening. I am Bernadette White, First Vice President of Program Planning and Development for the St. Louis Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I am very pleased to bring greetings on behalf of my chapter president, DeJeanette Williams, who is unable to be with us this evening, and the over 390 members of the St. Louis Alumni Chapter. As simply said by Michelle Obama, you've got to vote. Vote, vote, and vote. That's it. No further discussion. That's the way we move forward. So as my soror said earlier, take someone with you. Go to the polls. Our lives depend on it. So we'll look forward to seeing you at the polls on November 3rd.
Okay.
It's on you, Louise.
Okay. All right. Good evening. I am Louise Wilkerson. I am a co-president of the League of Women Voters of Metro St. Louis, and I happen to also be a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I belong to the St. Louis Metropolitan Alumni Chapter, so I'm just thrilled that the National Coalition of 100 Black Women invited the League to participate and to share what we can to help the current situation. I'm thrilled to work with my sister chapter in Delta, St. Louis Alumni Chapter, and I'm very proud to be here with my chapter president, Janice Baker. Just want to start out by saying that the League of Women Voters is a group of women and men of all ages and backgrounds with a common interest of making democracy work. I have to acknowledge that historically, the League has been thought of as an organization of middle class to upper middle class white women, older white women. But the League has worked very hard to change and to become more relevant and certainly more diverse. And we just welcomed our second African-American woman as national president this past June. She is Dr. Deborah Turner from Nebraska. And let me tell you, she's dynamite. And we are so proud. Now, so we are following, the League members now are following in the footsteps of a long line of leaders committed to building better communities and a stronger democracy. Since 1920, the League's mission has been to secure democracy's promise through voter education, issue advocacy, and citizen outreach. Our goal remains to help create a participatory democracy for the 21st century. And to that end, we believe the voting process should be made as easy as possible so that as many citizens as possible can't participate. That is the way we can preserve a healthy democracy. Needless to say, we are chagrined, angry, and upset with the various voter suppression tactics we've seen rolled out since the Shelby v. Holder decision that, gutted our handicap, the Voting Rights Act. So before I get going, what I want to say to you as voters, no matter who is in office in Washington, D.C., you have to hammer away at them that we want the Voting Rights Act restored. That's the only way we can ensure a fair democracy that will work for everyone, is that our rights as voters are protected. So, and I'll get more into the advocacy pieces a little bit later. So right now this evening, we want to talk about the fundamentals of voting right now during this pandemic with less than 2 weeks to go before election, before the November 3rd election. So I'm going to try something. It's called screen sharing. And I don't know, I'm kind of green. I may need a little help. So I beg your indulgence. So I'm going to hit share screen. Oh yeah, hey, I see it. And I'm going to click on share. All right, do you see it?
Yes, we
Yes,
do.
ma'am.
Yes.
Yay, give me a hand. Thanks to Jean Dugan, Executive Director at the League of Women Voters. She helped me rehearse my moves here. Okay, so once again, welcome to Voting 101. As you can see from this beautiful flyer, it's a collaborative event held by the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Incorporated, the Metropolitan St. Louis chapter. And we really appreciate the President Katrina Kerr reaching out to us for tonight. The League of Women Voters of Metro St. Louis and the St. Louis Alumni and St. Louis Metropolitan Alumni chapters of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And I just love this flyer because these are some beautiful women pictured here. Okay, so let's get into the meat of things. As you've heard, we can't say it too much. Your vote really does matter. I have heard some people in our community, particularly men, saying, oh, my vote doesn't matter. It does make a huge difference. So we vigorously refute that voting doesn't matter. It is your chance to show that you care about your community, state, and country. And it's a way for you to have some control over the governmental decisions that affect your family, friends, and community. I remember when I was, I guess about 16 or 17, it occurred to me, good grief. Who's in office affects everything. It affects how much taxes I have to pay, what educational opportunities I have. It affects whether or not I'll get fair treatment when I apply for a job, so forth and so on. So that's when I really got interested in politics. So what you have to remember is this: many elections, especially the local elections, are decided by only a handful of votes. And in some cases, it can be decided by one vote. I remember not too long ago, it was in 2012, I believe, there was on the ballot there in Columbia, Missouri, there was an issue that had to do with taxing or something. And it had to do with a commercial district. Now, there weren't many voters at all that lived there because it was mostly stores and businesses. And I guess the merchants in the area thought that they had the whole thing defeated, you know, because there weren't that many residents there. But there was a young lady that they forgot about, and she voted one way. And that one vote was what decided that issue, one vote. And that wasn't too long ago. So what we do know is this, and I want you to remember this. Look at these statistics in terms of the 2016 election. Focus in on the almost 30% of folks that did not vote. If we had, let's say, 70 to 80% participation in terms of the registered voters in St. Louis and Kansas City and Springfield, the three big population centers, we could, those population centers could just about determine how things go in this state. But sadly, we're lucky if we get 50% participation. So let us all strive to get out the vote. There, you know, what we're seeing now is sometimes voter registration is not the issue. It's the people who are already registered getting out to vote. And so this time around, we can't have a measly little 50% participation. We've got to have more than that. So do everything you can to encourage family, friends, and associates to get out and vote. Now, make a plan to vote. It's kind of late. What is this, October 22nd? Whew, and the election is November 3rd. But nonetheless, if you have not yet voted, here's some things to consider. Now, of course, you can always vote in person on election day, November 3rd. Now, in St. Louis County, you can go to any polling place and vote. So it doesn't have to be the polling place in your precinct. You know why? It's because St. Louis County Board of Elections invested in new equipment and a whole new system so that any voter that shows up, identifies himself or herself, they can go into the system and pull up the ballot for you based on where you live. And so that's great. Now, it's not that way in the city yet. In the city of St. Louis, you do have to go to your polling place, your designated polling place. Now, there's a lot going on in terms of absentee voting. The last day to request an absentee ballot was actually yesterday. So if you have an absentee ballot, we would advise you to turn it in person. It is kind of late to try to mail it, to be honest with you. Return it in person. You can return it to the Board of Elections. There might be a line, but if you've already filled it out, just take it and turn it in. Right now, I'd be a little bit leery of trusting the U.S. Postal Service at this time, given all that has occurred. Now, you can, of course, you can vote now in person at satellite voting, absentee satellite voting locations in the city and the county. And we'll come to a slide in a little bit that will show where those are. So you can vote. So instead of going all the way to the main headquarters, which might be crowded and so forth, you can choose to go to some satellite locations where perhaps the wait is not so long. Now, reasons to request an absentee ballot. These are the reasons that will appear on an application for an absentee ballot. So, number one, absence on election day from the jurisdiction of the election authority. So let's say business or job-related duties take me away from St. Louis County, and on November 3rd, I might be in Jefferson City or someplace. That I could use that reason. Number two, incapacitated or confined due to illness or physical disability, or I'm caring for a person who is incapacitated or confined due to illness or disability. Notice there's a big red star next to that one. That's because if that's the reason that you're requesting an absentee ballot, you would not have to get your ballot notarized. And I'll get into that in a minute. Number three, you're voting absentee because of some religious belief or practice. Number four, you're going to be working as an election authority, or you will be working at a location other than your own polling place. Number five, you're incarcerated. Believe it or not, there are a number of individuals who are incarcerated who have not yet been convicted of a crime. They're still in jail because they can't make bail. But because they can't make bail does not mean they give up their right to vote. So they still have a right to vote. Number five would be, wait a minute. Oh, number six, I meant to say. There are some address confidentiality programs that have been established under state law where perhaps we're dealing with domestic abuse, the threat of domestic violence, and the woman or man involved has to keep where they live confidential. And so you can vote absentee for that reason. Or let's say you're in a witness protection program or something like that. So you're voting absentee because of safety concerns. Now, number seven, this is new. This was added by the state legislature just this summer. So you have contracted or you are in an at-risk category for contracting COVID-19. And so what are the at-risk categories? Well, merely being over 65 years of age. That's one. So individuals who are 65 and older, that's it. They don't have to prove anything else. They can vote absentee. If you're younger than 65, but you have an immunocompromised condition, serious heart conditions, chronic lung disease, or moderate to severe asthma, chronic kidney disease, you're undergoing dialysis, or you're in a long-term care facility, and you can vote absentee. And there's another star there, which means you don't have to get your absentee ballot envelope notarized. Now, so if you're voting absentee because of reason number 1, 3, 4, 5, or 6, you have to get the signature on your absentee ballot envelope notarized. So there have been a lot of efforts throughout the area to provide that notary service free of charge. Now, the state did pass a law or something that said notary publics could not charge for this service. It has to be provided free of charge. So I know that the Missouri Voter Protection Coalition was providing information about how to find notaries. You could get notary services from the League of Women Voters from our office. You could also go to the Secretary of State's website to pull up a list of notary publics in the state. So I repeat, if the reason you're voting absentee is related to illness, physical disability, you're caring for someone, or you're in an at-risk category for catching the virus, then you don't have to get your absentee ballot notarized. The absentee ballots have to be returned in an envelope. And it is that envelope that has to be signed. The envelope that you would use to return your ballot, it has to be signed, and your signature has to match your name. In other words, let's say your name is William Morris. Well, you can't sign it Bill Morris. You know, you got to sign it William Morris. Otherwise, you're going to have trouble and it might not be counted. So we can come back. Now, here are the St. Louis County absentee voting satellite locations. We'll leave that up there so you can copy down the information as you need it. Notice that they're spread out so that there's one in South County, one in Mid St. Louis County at the library, the Mid-County Branch Library on Maryland, one north, which is at the North County Recreation Complex on Redmond Road, and one in West County. Notice that absentee voting started at those locations today. It says Friday, October 22nd. Well, it actually started October 22nd. And that's what, today, right? It's Thursday, not Friday. Okay, we'll have to correct that. And so from October 22nd to October 30th, those facilities will be open for in-person absentee voting from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And they will also be open the 2 Saturdays before the election, October 24th and October 31st from 9 to 1. And then the day before the election, they will be open till 5 p.m. That's the last day you can vote absentee in person. That's Monday, November 2nd. Okay. St. Louis City satellite locations, there are 4 of them. They're located in the libraries you see listed on the slide, and they're kind of spread around too. We got to correct this one. It should be Julia Davis on Natural Bridge Road, not Julian. But anyway, now they are open from 11 to 5, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. They've been actually open since October 12th. And then on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, they're open from 1 to 7. And there's a notation there. You have to use the touchscreen voting machines at those locations. The main office down on Tucker Boulevard, the main Board of Elections office does provide paper ballots, but the satellite locations do not. I have to say, I have to brag a little bit. These satellite locations available in city and county resulted from behind the scenes advocacy and asking and bugging the election authorities by the League of Women Voters. So we asked for these satellite locations and St. Louis County eventually, complied with our request. St. Louis City took a little bit longer, and it took the help of an alderwoman working with one of our league members who lives in the city, but they got it done. And we say, yay for them. So you see that you can advocate behind the scenes to get things to help get things in place to help the voting process. Now, okay, in addition to absentee balloting and just going on November 3rd, voting in person, there is something called mail-in ballots. You may have heard about that, mail-in ballots. There's no excuse needed for mail-in ballots, but you gotta get them notarized. You gotta get the signature on the ballot notarized. So I think it's kind of late to deal with mail-in ballots because we recommended that you would allow 10 working days to mail in a request for a mail-in ballot and 10 days to get it back and then 10 days to send it back. Any ballot that arrives after 7 p.m. on election day will not be counted. So unfortunately, we're not as lucky, I would say, as Pennsylvania. They will have 3 or 4 extra days after the election to count their mail-in ballots. The other thing about the mail-in ballots is this. Mail-in ballots can only be returned by U.S. Postal Service. They cannot be returned in person. And this is by state law. I don't know why they did that. It makes it more difficult. So right now, if you don't already have a mail-in ballot, I would forget about it and just try to vote in person. I would just say try to vote absentee in person. The other thing is, if you go in and you vote absentee in person, you of course have to show your identification. You have to identify yourself. So the election authority workers essentially provide the same function as a notary. So if you vote in person at one of those absentee voting centers, or you go to the main headquarters, then you don't have to go outside and get a notary. If you vote in person right there, you've got your driver's license or whatever to identify yourself, then you don't have to worry about a notary. So I hope you understand that. So right now, I would say it's a little late to deal with mail-in ballots. And if you don't already have it and you haven't already mailed it in, I would not even worry about it. If you have a mail-in ballot and you're afraid that it might not get back to the election authority in time, you can take it with you to the Board of Elections. You can just take it and turn it in and they'll spoil it. You know what I'm saying? They'll say, okay, Miss Jones turned it in. We'll just destroy that and we'll let her vote right here in person absentee. Or you can take it on election day and let them spoil it and then you can just vote. Okay, now supposedly you're supposed to receive a postcard at your voting address from the election board about 2 weeks before an election. That's typically how it works. I'm not so sure if it is working that way now with the problems with the U.S. Postal Service, but this postcard should tell you where your official polling place is. Remember, in St. Louis County, though, you can vote at any polling place. In St. Louis City, you gotta vote at your assigned place. Also, if you're in line to vote on election day at 7 p.m., if you're in line, you can still vote. You know, there might be 100 people in front of you, but if you're in that line at the stroke of 7 p.m., they have to let you vote. That's your right. Okay, so if you want information, if you want to check out who's on your ballot, what's on your ballot, you want some fun, basic information, go online to vote411.org. And you can type in your address, and then you'll get a screen that says something like, with a button that says something like show my races. Click on that and it will show you what your ballot looks like and what the choices are. Right now, in terms of ballot issues, there aren't a whole lot, but they are important. In St. Louis City and County and throughout the state, we have amendments 1 and 3. Vote411.org will give you some basic information about them. And in St. Louis City only, there's something called Proposition D, which I'm sorry for that telephone ringing in the background. That has to do with an alternative way of voting, where you'd have like a primary, and the 2 top vote getters would be the ones that go on to the general election, whether they're in the same political party or not. So it becomes sort of like nonpartisan. So that's an alternative way to vote for certain elected positions in St. Louis City government. And that's Proposition D. Okay, let's talk about the 2 constitutional amendments that are on the ballot. Constitutional Amendment 1. Well, I will tell you that the League doesn't have a real position on Amendment 1, but I'll tell you a little bit about what it's asking. So on the ballot, it says, do you want to amend the Missouri Constitution to extend the 2-term restriction that currently applies to the governor and treasurer to the lieutenant governor, secretary of state, auditor, and the attorney general? That language is a bit confusing. So let me see if I can straighten it out. Right now, there are 2 statewide elected officials that are term limited. That means they're limited to 2 consecutive terms. So that's the governor and the treasurer. So they can serve no more than 2 consecutive terms. Okay, got that? So what this amendment would do would be to apply that 2-term limit to other statewide elected positions: the lieutenant governor, secretary of state, auditor, and the attorney general. Some people have become very, let's say, cynical, and they don't want folks serving in these positions for more than 8 years. Their attitude is, hey, after 8 years, it's time for you to pack up and ship out and give somebody else a term. On the other hand, other people say that these offices are different, particularly, let's say, Secretary of State, an auditor, an attorney general, and they require a little bit of experience in order to be able to do the job effectively. And they say that these positions should be limited by voters, not the Constitution. So these people are saying, okay, if an auditor is doing a great job, let's let that auditor stay in that position as long as they're effective. When they cease to be effective, even if they've been in there for 12 years, let's let the voters make that decision and vote them out. Rather than having the state constitution say that they're done after 8 years. So that's now. The league was not able, we've been so busy doing other things, we did not do the type of research and study that we typically do. So on ballot issues. So we really couldn't come to consensus. So therefore we remain neutral on Constitutional Amendment 1. Okay. Now, Constitutional Amendment 3 is a whole different thing. It says, now this is what it says on the ballot. Shall the Missouri Constitution be amended to, and you can see 3 bullet points here. The first one, ban gifts from paid lobbyists to legislators and their employees. The second bullet, reduce legislative campaign contribution limits. Number 3, change the redistricting process voters approved in 2018 by transferring responsibility for drawing the state legislative districts from the nonpartisan state demographer to governor-appointed bipartisan commissions, and modifying and reordering the redistricting criteria. And then the last part is what they call the fiscal impact statement, and I'll get to that in a minute. Let's go back to the first bullet. Currently, as a result of the Clean Missouri legislation passed in 2018, lobbyist gifts are limited to only $5. And let's look at bullet 2, contribution limits for, and it says campaign contribution limits. Actually, it only talks about contribution limits relative to state Senate seats or contests. So essentially, we're already down to $5 for lobbyists. So to ban gifts, that's only a $5 decrease. Whoopee, big deal. But it's designed to make the voter think, oh, they're really doing something. I'm going to say, not really. The second bullet, the campaign contribution limits for state Senate campaigns is already down to $2,500. Amendment 3 would take it down to $2,400, $100. I don't think that's a whole lot to crow about myself. But what is it? Those 2 items kind of make the voter think, oh, they're really cleaning up state government. Well, it had already been cleaned up by Clean Missouri in 2018. What this amendment is really about is what's in the third bullet. It would throw out the redistricting reforms that were put on the books by Clean Missouri in 2018. It would totally wipe that out. And it would, if passed, Amendment 3 would eliminate the nonpartisan state demographer used for redistricting, and it would return to the use of bipartisan commissions in the State House and State Senate appointed by the governor. Now let's look at that. What experience has shown us is that the folks that wind up being on these bipartisan commissions are folks that have been chosen for certain reasons that may not always be in the best interest of voters. So if you could envision back rooms filled with cigar smoke and deals being made under the table, that's what we're talking about. The other thing is, in the fine print in Amendment 3, when redistricting takes place, they're supposed to use the total population count as determined by the census. So we just finished the census, right? And so what Amendment 3 would do would be to not use the total population count. Who would not be counted? Who would not be taken into consideration? It would be individuals under the age of 18. So Amendment 3 would allow only registered voters to be counted. So what does that mean? That means that areas or jurisdictions that have more children would have less representation. And I would say, why would we not consider the needs of children? You know, we're looking at healthcare needs, educational needs, recreational needs, and so forth. Why would we not count children when we're redistricting? It's ridiculous. That would make Missouri, by the way, the only state that excludes children from being considered when reapportionment or when redistricting takes place. The other thing in the fine print, and so that's from what I understand, that would be discounting 1.5 million people, 1.5 million Missouri children. So let's think about it. Let's say in St. Louis County, we have some municipalities that have, let's say, younger families than other municipalities. So, let's say, let's say in Clayton, the number of children is a little bit less than it is, let's say, in Normandy. So what would happen would be Normandy would lose out on representation and Clayton would gain. And to me, that's not fair. The other thing that's insidious about Amendment 3 is it has language in it that would make it very difficult or impossible for citizens to seek redress in the courts. If there's proof or suspicion that discrimination has taken place in redistricting. So you couldn't go to court. You couldn't challenge anything in court. And I don't like anything that would limit those remedies. So essentially, communities of color would be significantly underrepresented if Amendment 3 were to pass. So it would hurt our communities. It would allow politicians to rig the system and to continue to structure districts so as to keep themselves in power. And that's, the other thing is, and this is insulting to me, the legislators that put Amendment 3 on the ballot said they were doing so because they felt that Missouri voters really didn't know what they were doing in 2018 when they voted to approve Clean Missouri. In other words, we're stupid. We didn't know what we were doing, and so we need another chance to reconsider what we did. So needless to say, as you can guess, the League of Women Voters is very much against Amendment 3. We're not by ourselves, by the way. We've been joined by the NAACP, the Missouri AFL-CIO, Jobs with Justice, the Missouri NEA, and a whole host of other organizations. We're all against Amendment 3, so we would urge everybody to vote no on Amendment 3. Now, when you go to vote, acceptable IDs to vote. They're pictured here. Thank heaven, due to litigation brought by some of the various groups that I just named, we no longer have to worry about having a state issued photo ID. If you have one, that's wonderful. If you have a passport, that's wonderful. You can also use a state issued non-driver license. You can also use an ID from a Missouri university, college, Voc or tech school. You can use your ID or the postcard that the local election authority is going to mail out saying where you're supposed to go to vote. It has your name on it. It has your address on it. You can use that. You can also use a current utility bill or a bank statement and so forth. Now, if you're registered to vote, but for some reason you don't have any of those forms of identification, you can still vote. You can use a provisional, you can vote using a provisional ballot. Now, if you can get back to your polling place on election day and show a photo ID, your vote would count. Or here's another way. If your signature on that provisional ballot actually matches the signature on your voter registration, your vote will count. Now, as I said, what if you requested a mail-in ballot or an absentee ballot and you never received it? Or it was received and somehow you misplaced it at home and you lost it. Or you just got the ballot today and you fear it's too late to mail it back, which it probably is. Or let's say you made a mistake on the ballot and you don't want to turn it in, or you changed your mind and you want to vote in person. You change your mind about doing a mail-in ballot and you want to vote in person. You can still vote on election day. This is what you do. Just go to your polling place and tell the election official what happened. Turn in the ballots you have and they will spoil it. If you never received a ballot, you can sign a document that attests to the fact that you're saying you lost your ballot. Remember this, there's no way for a voter to cast two ballots. Now, you know, even to attempt to do such a thing is a very serious offense. And I know none of you would attempt such a thing. Okay. As we know, this is a very unusual election, and we may not have all the results in that night as we're accustomed to. But I know this, that Missouri law says that absentee and mail-in ballots have to be in the hands of the election authority by 7 p.m. on election day. Well, let's talk a little bit about voter intimidation. We don't expect much of it here in our area, but if we do, what we want to say to you is do not be intimidated. You have a right to vote, and it is your right, and nobody has any business trying to intimidate you or discourage you. So these are the forms of voter intimidation listed here. I think what most people are concerned about is whether there will be harassing or people at the polls trying to aggressively question a voter's qualifications to vote. If you see anything like that, if you see anybody dressed up in military gear, official looking uniforms, standing around outside of a polling place, they have no right to be there. You call 911 immediately, or you call the Election Protection Coalition at, there's the number there at the bottom of this slide, 866-OUR-VOTE. they are staffed by attorneys who will intercede immediately right then and there on your behalf. The other thing we need to be careful about, and wait a minute, this displaying of firearms, I'm really concerned about Missouri with our lax firearms control laws. I mean, there's actually very little control whatsoever. But if you see any weapons or anything like, you call 911 immediately. The other thing is that what I'm really concerned about is the spreading of false information about voting requirements and so forth to try to discourage people from voting. Do not be discouraged. If you have any questions whatsoever about voting, you can call the league office. You can also call 1-866-OUR-VOTE. There are experts there to answer the phone, and right now it's going on 24/7 to answer your questions. Whatever, listen, I am so motivated. Now, fortunately, because of age, I could vote absentee easily. But if I'm not, listen, I would be willing to crawl through glass to vote. And I hope you feel the same way. Now here's a picture of some ladies long ago who won the long battle for the right to vote in 1920. This slide says honor them by voting in 2020. But what I want to point out is that African Americans finally won the long battle in 1965 with the Voting Rights Act. In our battle, we shed much blood. All right. We were murdered, lynched, and so forth. We had to pay poll taxes and pass ridiculous tests throughout the South and in other places. If you even looked like you wanted to register to vote, you could lose your job or your life. I think about John Lewis, Medgar Evers, and others who gave up so much for us to have the right to vote. We have got to honor their legacy by voting. So yes, these ladies were wonderful and so forth, but I want to go beyond that. This right is so precious, and it truly is the cornerstone of democracy. Once again, remember, vote411.org. There's the league's phone number, 314-961-6869 if you have any questions. There's our web address, and I guess that's the Facebook or whatever, something. Anyway, social media something at LWVSTL. So that's it. I'm done. I'll be happy to answer questions. And I know we have another presenter, I think. So I will stop sharing the screen at this time. Thank you so much for your attention.
Okay. Hi, I'm Talisa Jackson Ivy. I am the chair of the political policy for the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Metropolitan St. Louis chapter. We will go to our questions and answers, and we actually have a question in the questions section. So I'm going to read it. And Ms. Wilkerson, if you can answer the question, that would be great.
I'll try.
Okay, so the question is, what if I forgot to notarize my ballot and sent it off already? Can I still vote on election day or early at a satellite location?
Here's what I would do. I would go ahead and I'll do two things. Call 1-866-OUR-VOTE. Remember I said it's staffed or manned by attorneys, call them tomorrow and ask them what you should do. I know one thing, you would have to try to go to your election authority to find that ballot so it could be spoiled. You know what I'm saying? They'd have to look for your ballot so it could be spoiled before you would try to vote again. Otherwise, it would appear that you're trying to vote twice and you could go to jail. So call those attorneys first. And then I would say they're probably going to recommend that you go to your local election. Yeah, call 1-866-OUR-VOTE. Boy, what a pickle. Good luck with that.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkerson. Does anyone else have any questions? I don't see that anyone else has any questions at the moment. Did anyone else want to speak regarding voting before we end the webinar? President Baker or Miss Bernadette, did you ladies have anything else to say?
I just want to say thank you to Louise Wilkerson and the League of Women Voters for presenting the information tonight. Every time I do one of these calls, I learn more and more and more. So thank you for presenting tonight. And I just want to say we're 12 days away. Our lives depend on it. Count down like you count down for Christmas. Count down to the election. And to get out and vote and take somebody with you. It is consequences. There's so much at stake with this election. And I don't want people to be a part of that 30% that they were in 2016 when they voted. Don't be a part of that
Exactly.
percentage that did not vote. Don't be a part of the 30%. Get out and vote, please. And like Louise said, those mail-in ballots, with the postal system, it's too late to mail it. Let it be spoiled. Take it in and vote. Take it in. Don't trust it. Like I said, we're 12 days away, and sometimes it takes a while to get mail. And so I want to make sure that your vote is counted. So thanks again, Louise. I always learn from
my
you,
pleasure.
so much from you.
This is what I live for. Bernadette, unmute.
Thank you. I also wanted to say thank you, Louise. You know, from our trips to Delta Days in Washington, D.C., I'm always learning from you, always learning from you. And it's so interesting that when you mentioned several people that have been role models for all of us that have fought, I just happen to have a John Lewis quote that was right here on my little pad that I've been sharing with people as we've been talking about voting. And the quote says, "The vote is precious. It is the most powerful, non-violent tool. We have a democratic society and we must use it. You can't sit at home and complain about what's not happening if you don't go out and vote. That is your voice. And we all love to talk and we all love to hear ourselves talk. So this is an opportunity for everyone to let your voice be heard, especially when we think about the days when our voices could not be heard. So again, Louise, thank you. Thank you to the coalition. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. As always, Louise, you are inspirational. I have already voted. So I am happy to say that I have already voted. But I will be wearing my little tag on the 3rd, letting everyone know that I have voted. So thank you, ladies. This has been very informative.
Okay, it's my pleasure.
Madam President.
Yes. So Louise, and I just want to thank you for this informational webinar, especially the breakdown of the amendments. Those are really, really tricky. Every time we vote, I won't lie, I'm sitting there like, what is this saying? And they throw those extra words in there to trick us. And so I just appreciate you really going through that and explaining. Because we don't have that opportunity, to know what is this saying? What is this really saying? And how do I vote? So I truly appreciate that education piece of it.
My pleasure.
And to everyone that is attending, if you need to go and vote on the 3rd, be patient. Do not get discouraged because the lines may be long. Hang in there, stand in line, but we have to have our voices heard. It is crucial. It's crucial that our voices are heard, and we have to make some changes in this nation and in this state. So I just want to thank you, Louise, and the League of Women Voters, and also to Janice and Bernadette for the 2 Delta
Thank you,
alumni
ladies.
chapters. This was an awesome. And I'll turn it
Can
back.
I just give a shout out? I have to give a shout out of appreciation to Jean Dugan, the executive director of the league. Now, I thought that was a great PowerPoint, but guess what? I didn't create it. She did. Don't know what I have to tell the truth. Don't know what I would do without her. Also, my partner in crime, the other co-president, Nancy Miller. Nancy is the one who does the research on all those issues, and she gets down in the weeds and all the nuances and technicalities, and then they tell me, so I can go out and I can look, like I know, but I have to tell the truth. So I just want to give a shout out to all the staff at the League of Women Voters. They're behind me and they make me look like I know something. But anyway, I'm pleased to, it's our pleasure. And listen, ladies, we look forward to more collaborations in the future. This has been great.
Thank you all so much on behalf of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. We thank you all. Thank you, President Janice Baker. Thank you, Ms. Wilkerson, for that wonderful, wonderful webinar. You did amazing. And thank you, Ms. Bernadette White, as well. And thank you to all of our panelists. Please remember to get out and vote. Again, like everybody said, your life depends on it. We have to make a change. We have 2 weeks. You all got this. We can do this. Please get out and vote. Also, we have a survey at the end. I am going to put it in the comment section. So if the participants and